Supreme Commander Velton paced back and forth in the Great Council chamber on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Empire. The room was huge, with walls made of polished metal that reflected the light from 1,000 stars visible through the clear dome overhead. But today, the most powerful being in the galaxy felt very small. "Tell me again what happened," he said to Intelligence Director Zixona, who stood nervously beside a large display screen. "Sir?" Fleet Admiral Kethavar's battle group approached the target planet with 200 ships, standard conquest formation. The primitives on the planet received our surrender demand. Then, according to our only witness, the entire fleet vanished. Vanished how? Destroyed? Retreated? No, sir. Vanished. Gone. The scout pilot ran every scan possible. No debris field, no energy signatures, no ion trails showing they jumped to hyperspace. They simply are not there anymore." Velton stopped pacing and stared at the display showing Earth's solar system. Such a small, ordinary system. One yellow star, a few rocky planets, nothing special. How could something so insignificant cause such a massive problem? What do we know about these humans? Zixona touched a control and the screen filled with information. "That's the strange part, sir. They are not in our database." "What do you mean, not in our database?" "We have cataloged every intelligent species in this galaxy." "Yes, sir, we have. But humans are not listed anywhere. It's as if they appeared from nowhere." This was impossible. The Empire had been mapping the galaxy for thousands of years. Every world with intelligent life was recorded, studied, and eventually conquered or made into an ally. Species didn't just appear. "Send Admiral Nexstar to investigate," Velton ordered. "Give him our best science ships. I want to know everything about these humans and how they made our fleet disappear." 3 days later, Admiral Nexstar arrived at Earth with 12 ships full of the Empire's most advanced sensors and scientists. He was known throughout the galaxy as the Empire's best investigator. If anyone could solve this mystery, it was him. "Begin full-spectrum analysis," he ordered as his ships spread out around Earth's solar system. "I want every atom in this system examined." The Empire's ships began their work. They sent out sensor beams that could detect energy signatures from 1,000 years ago. They launched probes that could find hidden bases on the dark side of moons. They used scanners that could see through solid rock. On Earth, Captain Jiho watched the alien ships from the hidden command center deep beneath Sol. The room looked like something from a science fiction movie, with dozens of screens showing views from space and data streaming in from sensors hidden throughout the solar system. "They're very thorough," said Admiral Nam, studying the enemy ship's movements. "Their technology is quite advanced." "But not advanced enough," replied Dr. Sunho Park, the scientist who had developed the Sol project. "They're looking for conventional weapons and energy signatures. They have no idea what they're really dealing with." Jiho nodded. The humans had been studying Empire technology for decades through intercepted communications. They knew exactly how the Empire's sensors worked and what they looked for. That's why the Sol project had been designed to be completely undetectable by conventional means. "Sir," said Lieutenant Minji from her station, "the aliens are scanning our cities. They're getting detailed information about our population and technology level." "Let them look," said Admiral. "All they'll see is what we want them to." See, what the Empire's sensors saw was exactly what they expected. A primitive civilization that had just barely learned to travel between stars. Human cities looked normal. Their factories were simple. Their spaceports held only basic cargo ships and a few small military vessels that couldn't hurt anything bigger than a meteorite. Admiral Nexstar studied the reports coming in from his science teams. "The humans appear to be exactly what our original intelligence suggested," he told his staff. "Primitive technology, limited space capability, no advanced weapon systems." "But sir," said his science officer, "something destroyed our fleet." "The fleet is not destroyed. It's gone." "There's a difference." Nexstar looked at the data again. "According to every test we can run, these humans couldn't build a weapon capable of scratching the paint on one of our ships, let alone making 200 ships disappear. Then what happened to Fleet Admiral Kethavar? That was the question that troubled Nexstar most. He had been investigating strange events for the Empire for 30 years. He had solved mysteries that baffled other commanders. But this was different. This time, there was no evidence at all. Deep underground on Earth, Engineer Do-Hyun was explaining the Sol project to a group of military leaders from around the world. The meeting was held in a secure bunker that the Empire's sensors couldn't detect. The basic idea is simple, he said, pointing to a diagram. Instead of destroying enemy ships, we move them somewhere else. Where? Asked General Inha from the European Defense Force. Into what we call pocket dimensions. Think of normal space as a sheet of paper. We fold the paper, creating a small bubble that exists beside our reality but not in it. Anything we put in that bubble disappears from our universe but continues to exist. Are the enemy crews still alive? Asked Commander Wu Jin from the American sector. Yes, they're completely unharmed. They're just somewhere else. Their ships still work. Their life support is fine. They can even communicate with each other. They just can't get back to normal space without our help. And the Empire sensors can't detect this technology. No. What we're doing doesn't use energy in any way they understand. We're manipulating the basic structure of space itself. To their instruments, it looks like the ship simply stopped existing. Meanwhile, Admiral Nexstar was becoming frustrated. His ships had been scanning for a week and they had found nothing. No hidden weapons, no secret bases, no advanced technology. The humans appeared to be exactly what they seemed. A young species with basic space travel. Sir, reported his communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it on screen. A human face appeared on the display. It was a middle-aged man in a simple military uniform. He looked calm and friendly. Greetings, the human said. I am Admiral Nam of Earth Defense Command. We understand you are investigating the disappearance of your ships. We want you to know that we had nothing to do with it. Admiral Nexstar leaned forward. Then what happened to them? We don't know. One moment they were here, the next they were gone. Perhaps they experienced some kind of technical malfunction, or maybe they were recalled by your command for reasons we don't understand. Nexstar studied the human's face. Either this Admiral Nam was an incredibly good liar or he was telling the truth. Everything about his manner suggested honesty and confusion. Our ships do not just disappear, Nexstar said. We understand that this must be very troubling for you. If there's anything we can do to help with your investigation, please let us know. We want to maintain peaceful relations between our peoples. After the transmission ended, Nexstar sat back in his command chair. The humans seemed genuine. Their technology scans showed nothing that could threaten an Empire ship. Yet somehow 200 warships had vanished without a trace. Sir, said his science officer, I have an idea. What if the ships weren't destroyed or moved? What if they're still here but we just can't see them? Explain. Some kind of cloaking technology we've never encountered before. Something that hides things so completely that they might as well not exist. Nexstar considered this. It was possible, though he had never heard of technology that advanced. Run scans for cloaked objects. Check for any kind of distortion that might indicate hidden ships. The scans found nothing. 3 more days of investigation yielded no results. Admiral Nexstar finally sent his report back to Supreme Commander Veltan. The human civilization appears to be primitive and harmless. I can find no evidence of advanced weapons or technology. The fate of the missing fleet remains unknown. When Veltan received this report, he threw it across his office in anger. 200 ships didn't just disappear. Someone was responsible, and he was going to find out who. But first, he needed to deal with a growing problem. Word of the fleet's disappearance was spreading throughout the Empire. Some of the conquered worlds were starting to whisper about rebellion. If the Empire looked weak, everything they had built could fall apart. Veltan made a decision that would change everything. If investigation couldn't solve this mystery, then overwhelming force would. He would send the biggest, most powerful weapon the Empire had ever built to Earth. Something so strong that nothing could make it disappear. He would send the Eternal Conquest. The largest fleet in galactic history approached Earth's solar system like a metallic storm cloud. 2,000 Imperial warships flew in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. At the center of this armada, Supreme Commander Veltan stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Empire's Wrath, staring at the small blue planet that had caused the collapse of everything he had worked to build. Sir, we're receiving surrender demands from 37 more systems, reported his communications officer. The rebellion is spreading faster than we can contain it. It ends today, Veltan said firmly. Once we destroy the humans, the galaxy will remember why they fear the Empire. On Earth, Captain Jiho watched the approaching fleet from the command center beneath Seoul. The room was quieter than usual, with everyone focused on their tasks. They all knew this would be the most important battle in human history. Sir, reported Lieutenant Minji, the Imperial fleet will be in weapons range in 10 minutes. All displacement generators ready? Jiho asked. Yes, sir, Engineer Doyun replied. But sir, I have to remind you that moving 2,000 ships simultaneously could destabilize local spacetime. We might tear a hole in reality that destroys everything within several light years. Understood, Jiho said. Hansel, are we ready for the broadcast? Yes, sir. We're linked into every communication network in the galaxy. When you give the word, every intelligent being in known space will be able to hear us. Admiral Nam looked concerned.
Captain, are you sure about this plan?
We're taking an enormous risk. The biggest risk would be doing nothing, Jiho replied. If we just make their fleet disappear like the others, nothing really changes. The Empire rebuilds. Other species continue to live in fear, and eventually someone develops technology to counter ours. But if we do this right, we can change everything. The Imperial fleet took position around Earth, forming a sphere of destruction that could turn the planet into atoms. On the bridge of the Empire's wrath, Velton prepared for his final gambit. All ships prepare to fire on my command, he announced to the fleet. Today we remind the galaxy why the Empire has ruled for 1,000 years. At that moment, every communication system in the galaxy activated simultaneously. Captain Jiho's voice reached every world, every ship, every intelligent being from the galactic core to the outer rim. Citizens of the galaxy, Jiho began, you are witnessing what the Galactic Empire calls their ultimate show of force. 2,000 ships armed with enough weapons to destroy 100 worlds, all focused on one small planet. On the Imperial Bridge, officers tried frantically to cut off the transmission, but the human signal was coming from everywhere at once. But before this battle begins, Jiho continued, we want to offer everyone in this fleet a choice. You can continue to serve an empire that sees you as tools to maintain their power, or you can join the rest of the galaxy in choosing freedom. Velton activated his own communication system. Ignore their propaganda. All ships open fire, but something unprecedented happened. Instead of immediately following orders, ship captains across the fleet hesitated. On bridge after bridge, crews looked at each other uncertainly. This is Captain Nexara of the cruiser Star's Edge, came a voice over the fleet communication channel. I have family on 3 worlds that are currently in rebellion. Why are we fighting to keep them enslaved? This is Commander Tolvan of the destroyer Iron Fist. My home world was conquered 50 years ago. Are we really the good guys here? More voices joined in, captains and crews questioning orders they had followed without thought for years. All ships, I said, fire. Velton shouted. Some ships obeyed, launching massive volleys of destruction toward Earth. But as their weapons approached the planet, they simply vanished, just as the earlier attacks had. The planet remained untouched, surrounded by an invisible shield that made the Empire's most powerful weapons irrelevant. But this time, something different happened. As each weapon disappeared, it reappeared somewhere else in the galaxy. Energy beams that had been aimed at Earth materialized in the orbits of worlds under Imperial occupation, striking the garrison fleets and orbital fortresses that kept those worlds enslaved. People of the galaxy, Jiho announced, the weapons that were meant to destroy Earth are now liberating your worlds. Every shot fired at us becomes a shot fired for your freedom. Across the galaxy, the impossible was happening. Imperial garrison forces found themselves under attack by their own fleet's weapons. Orbital platforms that had kept conquered worlds in line were being destroyed by energy beams that had materialized from nowhere. On dozens of worlds, enslaved populations watched as their oppressors' fortresses exploded, destroyed by weapons that seemed to come from empty space. This is impossible, Velton shouted. You can't redirect our attacks. We're not redirecting them, Jiho replied calmly. We're delivering them to where they'll do the most good. Every weapon you fire at us becomes a weapon of liberation for species you've oppressed. More captains in the Imperial fleet began to question their orders. Sir, one asked over the communication channel, are we accidentally attacking our own forces on other worlds? It doesn't matter, Velton screamed. Destroy that planet! But fewer ships were firing now. As word spread through the fleet that their attacks were somehow being turned against Imperial forces elsewhere, more and more captains held their fire. This is Admiral Kolseth of the battle cruiser Galactic Pride, came a new voice. I'm looking at reports that our weapons fire just destroyed the Imperial fortress on my homeworld of Kepler 7. The same fortress that's been keeping my people enslaved for 30 years. All Imperial ship commanders, Jiho announced. You have a choice to make. Continue fighting for an empire that's already falling apart, or help us build something better, something where species work together instead of conquering each other. Commander, Velton's tactical officer said quietly, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Imperial garrisons on 43 worlds have been destroyed by weapons that match our own energy signatures. It appears our attacks really are being redirected somehow. Velton stared at the tactical display showing the spreading chaos. Every shot fired at Earth had struck an Imperial target somewhere else in the galaxy. The humans had turned the Empire's own weapons against itself. Sir, his communication officer reported, we're receiving surrender requests from Imperial governors on dozens of worlds. They say they can't maintain control without their garrison fleets. And sir, added another officer, 137 ships in our own fleet have stopped responding to fire orders. Their captains are requesting permission to withdraw. Captain Jiho's voice continued to reach every corner of the galaxy. The choice is simple. You can keep fighting for an empire that's collapsing, or you can help build a galaxy where no species is enslaved to another, where different worlds work together because they choose to, not because they're forced to. On the bridge of the cruiser Star's Edge, Captain Nexara made her decision. This is the Star's Edge, we're standing down. We will not fire on the humans. Her declaration was followed by dozens of others. The Iron Fist is withdrawing from formation. The Stellar Hammer requests permission to return home. The Void Walker will not participate in this attack. Within an hour, half the Imperial fleet had either withdrawn or refused to follow orders. The other half remained in formation, but their crews were increasingly reluctant to fire weapons that might be turned against Imperial forces on their home worlds. Supreme Commander Velton watched his ultimate gambit collapse around him. The fleet that was supposed to restore the Empire's reputation was instead witnessing its final dissolution. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving a direct message from the humans. For you only. Velton activated the private channel and saw Captain Jiho on his screen. Commander, Jiho said, your empire is finished, not because we destroyed it, but because your own people have chosen something better. You can go down fighting for a lost cause, or you can help us build something new. What are you offering? A place in a galaxy where worlds cooperate instead of conquer, where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them, where beings like you, with experience in leadership and organization, help build peace instead of maintaining oppression. Velton looked around his bridge at officers who were no longer sure what they were fighting for. And if I refuse? Then you'll spend the rest of your life watching the galaxy become something better without you. The choice is yours, Commander, but choose quickly. History is moving on with or without the Galactic Empire. The transmission ended, leaving Velton to contemplate the end of everything he had known. 6 months later, Captain Jiho stood on the observation deck of the space station that orbited where the Imperial capital had once been. Below, representatives from hundreds of worlds worked together to build the Free Worlds Alliance, a voluntary association of species committed to mutual protection and cooperation. The displacement technology that had once been humanity's secret weapon was now shared freely with any world that chose freedom over conquest. No species could be forced into slavery when they could simply make attacking fleets disappear. The emergency council chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such chaos. Representatives from across the Galactic Empire shouted at each other, while reports of rebellion poured in from every corner of their territory. Supreme Commander Velton sat at the head of the great table, his uniform still torn from his escape from the crippled dreadnought. 17 worlds have declared independence, shouted Council Member Zarvex, waving a datapad. The Kantari system has expelled all Imperial forces. The mining colonies in the Outer Rim have gone silent. It's spreading faster than we can respond, added Intelligence Director Zixona. Every world that saw the broadcast of our defeat is questioning our authority. Velton slammed his fist on the table. It was one battle, one setback that was broadcast to our entire territory, replied Council Member Thylon coldly. A setback where our ultimate weapon was made to look like a child's toy. The large display screen at the front of the chamber showed a map of the Empire. Red dots marked worlds in rebellion, and there were far too many of them. Each day brought news of more uprisings, more declarations of independence, more Imperial forces being driven away. What do we know about this human technology? Veltan demanded. Zixona activated a holographic display showing the few images they had captured of the battle. Our analysis suggests they can manipulate space-time itself. Weapons, ships, even energy beams simply cease to exist in normal space. Where do they go? Unknown. Our scientists theorize they might be moved to parallel dimensions, but we have no way to verify this or retrieve anything that has been displaced. Council member Kexran leaned forward. Can we develop countermeasures? We don't even understand the basic principles behind their technology. It's like trying to defend against something that violates the laws of physics. Veltan stood and walked to the great window that looked out over the capital city. Below, he could see crowds gathering in the streets. Even here on the Empire's homeworld, people were starting to whisper about the humans who had made the mighty Imperial fleet disappear. How many ships do we have left? He asked without turning around. Approximately 2,000 combat vessels, replied Admiral Colton. But sir, they're spread across the entire galaxy trying to maintain order. If we concentrate them for another attack on Earth, we'll lose control of dozens of systems. And if we don't attack Earth, we lose control anyway, Veltan replied. The humans have shown the galaxy that we can be defeated. Every day we delay gives our enemies more time to organize. He turned back to face the council. Prepare every available ship for one final assault. I don't care if it leaves the rest of our territory defenseless. If we can't defeat the humans, the Empire is finished anyway. Sir, Zixona said carefully, what if the same thing happens again? What if they make our entire fleet disappear? Then at least we'll die fighting instead of watching our empire crumble piece by piece. Meanwhile on Earth, Captain Jiho stood in the expanded command center that now coordinated with resistance movements across the galaxy. The room buzzed with activity as communications poured in from dozens of worlds. Sir, reported Communications Officer Hansel, we're receiving requests for assistance from the Alderian Republic, the free colonies of Vega, and at least 20 other systems. They want our protection against Imperial retaliation. Admiral Nam studied the tactical display showing rebellions throughout the Empire. We can't protect everyone. Our displacement network only covers our solar system. Then we need to expand it, said Dr. Sunho from his station. I've been working on portable displacement generators, small enough to be hidden on other worlds, powerful enough to protect individual planets. How long would that take? Shiho asked. To build enough generators to protect even half the rebelling systems? Years, maybe decades. Lieutenant Minji looked up from her monitoring station. Captain, we're detecting massive Imperial fleet movements. They're pulling ships from all over the galaxy and concentrating them near Empire space. How many? Admiral Nam asked. Over 2,000 ships, sir. Everything they have left. Dr. Sunho ran quick calculations. Sir, that's 10 times larger than anything we've faced before. Our displacement network wasn't designed to handle that many targets simultaneously. Can we modify it? Jiho asked. Possibly, but the energy requirements would be enormous. We'd need to drain power from the entire planet, and even then we might not have enough. Engineer Dohyun joined the conversation. There's another problem. Each displacement puts stress on local space-time. Moving 2,000 ships at once could tear holes in reality that we can't repair. What kind of holes? Admiral Nam asked. The kind that could destroy our solar system. Or worse. Jiho studied the display showing the assembling Imperial fleet. The Empire was clearly preparing for one final desperate assault. Everything they had, thrown at Earth in a last attempt to maintain their power. Sir, Hansel reported, I'm intercepting Imperial communications. Supreme Commander Veltan is planning to lead the assault personally. They're calling it Operation Final Authority. They're broadcasting it again? Yes, sir. They want their remaining loyal worlds to see them crush the human rebellion. Then we need to make sure it sends the right message, Jiho decided, but not the message they're expecting. What do you mean, sir? Jiho turned to address the entire command staff. The Empire is making the same mistake they've made from the beginning. They think this is about military strength. They think if they bring enough ships, they can overwhelm us, can't they? Asked Commander Soyoung, who had arrived from the African sector. No, because this was never about the ships. Jiho activated a new display showing communication intercepts from across the galaxy. Look at these messages. Rebellions on dozens of worlds, entire systems declaring independence, The Empire's own people rising up against their rulers. The humans have given hope to every oppressed species in the galaxy, Admiral Nam realized. They've shown that the Empire can be defeated. Exactly. And that's our real weapon. Not the displacement technology, but the idea it represents. The proof that being small doesn't mean being helpless. Dr. Sunho looked puzzled. But sir, how does that help us against 2,000 ships? Ideas don't stop plasma cannons, don't they? Jiho asked. Hensel, open a channel to every rebelling world in the galaxy. It's time to make an announcement, sir, that would reveal our communication capabilities to the Empire. Good. I want them to know exactly who they're dealing with. The communication went out on thousands of frequencies, reaching every corner of the galaxy where species were fighting for their freedom. People of the galaxy, Jiho's voice carried across the stars. This is Captain Jiho Park of the human vessel Soul's Shadow. We know that many of you are fighting for your independence from the Galactic Empire. We want you to know that you are not alone. On worlds throughout the galaxy, beings who had never seen a human stopped what they were doing to listen. The Empire is preparing to send their remaining fleet against Earth. They believe that if they can defeat us, they can crush your hopes for freedom. They are wrong. Sir, Minji whispered, Imperial forces are trying to jam our transmission. Let them try, Jiho replied, then continued his broadcast. In 3 days, when the Empire's fleet arrives at Earth, they will discover something they never expected. They will learn that their greatest enemy is not humanity's weapons, but humanity's refusal to accept that freedom is impossible. The transmission ended, leaving billions of beings across the galaxy to wonder what the humans had planned. Sir, asked Commander Wu Jin, who had joined them from the American sector, what exactly do we have planned? Jiho smiled. We're going to do something the Empire will never expect. What's that? We're going to give them a choice. A choice? Between maintaining their empire through force or joining the rest of the galaxy and choosing freedom. And we're going to make that choice in front of every species in the galaxy. Admiral Nam looked concerned. Captain, you're talking about offering surrender terms to an enemy that outnumbers us 1,000 to 1. No, Jiho replied. I'm talking about offering partnership terms to people who are about to discover that their empire is already finished. The question is whether they want to go down with it or help build something better. The final confrontation was coming, and for the first time in the galaxy's history, it wouldn't be decided by who had the bigger guns. Supreme Commander Veltan stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, staring out at the small blue planet that had caused him so much trouble. The massive dreadnought stretched 15 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that could turn entire moons into dust. Around it, 500 escort ships flew in perfect formation, the largest battle fleet in the Empire's history. Communications. Open a channel to the entire fleet and broadcast on all Empire frequencies, Veltan commanded. I want every world in our territory to witness this moment. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Broadcasting to all Empire worlds. Veltan straightened his uniform and faced the camera. Citizens of the Galactic Empire, today you will witness the price of defying our authority. The primitive creatures on the planet below somehow caused one of our fleets to disappear. Today, we will show them and all who might oppose us that the Empire's power is absolute. He gestured toward the view screen showing Earth. Weapons. Charge the planet killer beam. Target their largest population center. Captain Jiho watched this broadcast from the command center deep beneath Seoul, along with hundreds of other humans monitoring the approaching fleet. The alien commander's arrogance was exactly what they had expected. Sir, reported Lieutenant Minji from her station, all displacement generators are online and synchronized. Dr. Sunho's modifications are complete. Energy reserves? Jiho asked. At maximum capacity, reported Engineer Do-hyun. We've diverted power from non-essential systems across the entire planet. If this doesn't work, we won't get a second chance. Dr. Sunho looked up from his calculations. Captain, I have to warn you again. What we're attempting has never been done before. We're trying to selectively displace parts of a ship while leaving other parts intact. If our targeting is off by even a few meters, we could kill everyone aboard. And if we don't try, they'll kill everyone on Earth. Admiral Nam replied firmly. Proceed with the plan. On the Eternal Conquest, the weapons officer reported that the planet killer beam was fully charged. The weapon could punch through a planet's crust and detonate the core, destroying the entire world. Sir, shall we demand surrender first? Asked the tactical officer. No, Velton said coldly. They had their chance to surrender. Now they will serve as an example. Fire when ready. The massive weapon began to glow with deadly energy. In 60 seconds, it would discharge enough power to crack Earth like an eggshell. 30 seconds to firing, announced the weapons officer. In the command center beneath Seoul, Jiho began the final countdown. All stations report ready? Ready, came the responses from around the room. 15 seconds, called the alien weapons officer. Displacement network is locked onto target, Minji reported. 10 seconds. All generators show green, said Do-yun. 5 seconds to firing, announced the alien bridge. Fire the planet killer, Velton commanded. The Eternal Conquest's main weapon discharged with a blast of energy that could be seen from the outer edge of the solar system. The beam of destruction raced toward Earth at the speed of light, and then it simply vanished. The deadly energy that should have destroyed humanity's homeworld disappeared completely, leaving no trace that it had ever existed. On the alien bridge, instruments showed the weapon had fired perfectly, but the beam was gone. What happened? Velton demanded. Where is our attack? Sir, the weapon fired normally, but... The weapons officer stared at his instruments in confusion. The energy discharge just isn't there anymore. But that was only the beginning. As the alien crew struggled to understand what had happened to their attack, parts of their own ship began to disappear. First, the secondary weapon arrays simply vanished, leaving empty spaces where massive cannons had been moments before. Then sections of the engine room disappeared, taking half the ship's power generation with them. Life support systems, shield generators, communication arrays, critical components throughout the ship began vanishing one by one. Sir, shouted the engineering officer, we're losing major systems. Engine power is down to 20%. Shields are failing, reported another officer. Sir, the main computer core just disappeared. We're running on backup systems only. Velton watched in horror as his ultimate weapon was systematically dismantled before his eyes. The ship wasn't being destroyed. It was being carefully taken apart piece by piece. All ships open fire on the planet. He ordered the escort fleet. The 500 escort ships began to fire every weapon they had at Earth. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the blue planet. In the command center, Jiho calmly watched the incoming attacks. Activate planetary defense grid. Around Earth's orbit, dozens of hidden displacement generators came online. Every incoming weapon simply vanished the moment it came within range of the planet. Thousands of deadly attacks disappeared as if they had never existed. But the human response was even more dramatic. Just as the first alien fleet had vanished weeks earlier, the entire escort fleet began to disappear ship by ship. Unlike the slow dismantling of the dreadnought, the smaller ships vanished completely and instantly. On the bridges of the disappearing ships, alien crews watched in terror as their sister ships simply stopped existing. One moment a ship was there, the next moment there was empty space where it had been. Admiral, the fleet is disappearing, radioed one of the remaining captains. Velton could only watch as his magnificent armada was erased from existence. In less than 5 minutes, 500 of the Empire's finest warships had vanished without a trace. Sir, his communication officer said shakily, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it on screen. Captain Jiho appeared on the view screen, sitting calmly in what looked like a simple military command center. Behind him, human officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. Supreme Commander Velton, Jiho said politely, I believe you wanted to demonstrate the Empire's power to your conquered worlds. I hope they're watching carefully. Velton stared at the human who had just destroyed the greatest fleet ever assembled. What are you? What kind of weapons do you possess? We are humans, Jiho replied simply. And our weapons are not what you think they are. Your ships and crews are unharmed, by the way. They're simply somewhere else now. Where? Safe, alive, but no longer a threat to anyone. Velton looked around his crippled bridge. Half his crew stations were gone, leaving gaps where vital systems had been. The ship was still intact enough to support life, but it could neither fight nor flee. How is this possible? He demanded. Our sensors detect no energy signatures, no weapons, no advanced technology on your planet. That's because you're looking for the wrong things, Jiho explained. You expect every species to fight the way you fight. Bigger guns, stronger shields, more ships. But we don't fight your battles, Commander. We simply make your battles irrelevant. What do you want? Surrender? Tribute? Jiho shook his head. We want you to go home. Tell your empire that Earth is under our protection. Any fleet sent against us will share the same fate as yours. You think this will stop the empire? We have thousands of ships, and we have the ability to make them all disappear. How many fleets are you willing to lose before you accept that you cannot win this fight? Felton realized the truth of what the human was saying. The empire's strength was built on fear and overwhelming force. But what good was force against an enemy that could simply make it vanish? Your empire rules through fear, Jiho continued. You make other species afraid by showing them weapons they cannot match. But fear only works when your weapons matter. Today, every world in your territory has seen that your most powerful fleet can be defeated by a species you consider primitive. How long do you think your conquered worlds will remain afraid? The Supreme Commander understood. Throughout the Empire, on thousands of worlds, oppressed species had watched the humans make the Empire's ultimate weapon disappear. The broadcast that was meant to demonstrate the Empire's invincible power had instead shown its helplessness. Sir, his communication officer reported quietly, we're receiving reports of uprisings on 17 worlds. The conquered populations are demanding independence. Felton closed his eyes. In trying to crush one small world, he had started the collapse of everything the Empire had built. We're going to send you home now, Jiho said. But first I want you to understand something. We didn't have to leave your ship partially intact. We could have made it disappear completely just like your escort fleet. We chose to let you survive because we wanted you to carry a message back to your empire. What message? That humanity doesn't conquer. We protect, and any species that chooses freedom over slavery will find us standing beside them. The transmission ended, and Velton felt his crippled ship beginning to move, but they weren't flying under their own power. Somehow the humans were moving the entire dreadnought. Sir, we're being transported back toward Empire space, reported the navigator. Velton sat down heavily in his command chair, staring out at the stars. The greatest military operation in the Empire's history had ended in complete defeat. Worse, it had been broadcast live to every world under their control. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years through fear and overwhelming force. Today, a species they had never even. Captain Jiho walked through the hidden corridors beneath Seoul, passing doors that led to rooms full of technology that didn't officially exist. The Terra Defense Complex stretched for kilometers underground, a secret city that housed humanity's greatest project. Above ground, people went about their normal lives, never knowing that beneath their feet lay the weapons that would save their world. The main briefing room was packed with representatives from every continent on Earth. These were not the political leaders that the public knew about. These were the secret guardians who had been preparing for this day for 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Nam began, the Empire is preparing to escalate. Our intelligence suggests they will send something much larger than the First Fleet. Jiho took his place at the front of the room beside a large holographic display. With a gesture, he activated it, showing a map of Earth's solar system dotted with hundreds of small symbols. Most of you know about the Sol Project, he said. What you might not know is how extensive our preparations have been. The display zoomed in on one of the symbols near Mars. It showed what looked like a small asteroid, but the cutaway view revealed sophisticated machinery inside. We have displacement generators hidden throughout the solar system, Jiho continued, on asteroids on the dark sides of moons, even floating in empty space disguised as space debris. Each one can create pocket dimensions large enough to contain entire fleets. Commander So-young from the African Defense Network raised her hand. How long have we been building this network? Construction began 18 years ago, answered Dr. Sun-ho, stepping forward. We started 3 years after we first intercepted Empire communications and realized they were expanding in our direction. The room murmured with surprise. Many of the people present had thought humanity's preparation began much more recently. We've been listening to their radio signals for decades, Dr. Sun-ho continued. We know their technology, their military tactics, their weaknesses. While they saw us as primitive creatures who just learned to travel between stars, we were studying them and preparing. General Inha from Europe looked puzzled. If we've known about them for so long, why didn't we make contact? Try to negotiate? Admiral Nam's expression grew serious. Because we studied their history. The Galactic Empire doesn't negotiate with species they consider inferior. They conquer or they destroy. There is no third option. Jiho activated another part of the display showing intercepted Empire communications. These are records of their previous conquests. Species that tried to surrender were enslaved. Species that tried to fight using conventional weapons were wiped out. The Empire has conquered over 3,000 worlds, and not once have they accepted a species as equals. So we decided to become something they had never encountered before, added Dr. Sunho. Not a species with bigger guns or stronger shields, but one that could make their threats simply disappear. Engineer Do-hyun stepped up to explain the technical details. The quantum displacement technology works by creating small tears in space-time. Think of reality as a fabric. We can cut small holes in that fabric and fold the edges, creating pockets that exist alongside our universe but separate from it. Is it safe? Asked Commander Woojin from the American sector. Mostly, Do-hyun admitted. Each displacement uses enormous amounts of energy and puts stress on local space. If we overdo it, we could accidentally tear a hole too big to close. That could destroy our solar system or worse. How much worse? So-young asked. In the worst-case scenario, we could unravel the fabric of space-time in this entire region of the galaxy. Several star systems could be destroyed. The room fell silent as people absorbed this information. That's why we've been so careful, Jiho said. Each displacement is calculated precisely. We never move more than we have to, and we always have backup plans. Lieutenant Minji stood up from her position at a monitoring station. Sir, I'm getting reports from our deep space sensors. The Empire is sending something new. The main display changed to show long-range sensor data. A massive object was approaching Earth's solar system, escorted by hundreds of smaller ships. That's the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Nam said grimly. We've been tracking its construction for 5 years. It's 15 kilometers long and carries enough firepower to crack planets. How many escort ships? Jiho asked. 500, sir. The largest battle fleet the Empire has ever assembled. Dr. Sunho ran calculations on his handheld computer. We've never tried to displace something that large. The Eternal Conquest is 50 times bigger than anything we've moved before. Can our network handle it? Asked General Inha unknown. We might have to overload half our generators just to move the main ship. And with 500 escorts? Do-hyun shook his head. We're talking about energy requirements that could drain our entire planetary power grid. Jiho studied the approaching fleet on the display. The Empire was clearly done with investigations and small probes. This was their ultimate threat, surrender or die. There's something else, Minji reported. Our communication intercepts suggest that Supreme Commander Veltan is personally leading this fleet. This isn't just about conquering Earth anymore. It's about the Empire's reputation. Admiral Nam nodded grimly. The disappearance of their first fleet has caused problems throughout their territory. Some of their conquered worlds are starting to rebel. They need a decisive victory to maintain control, which means they won't retreat, Jiho realized. Even if we make their first wave disappear, they'll keep sending more until they understand what's happening or until they destroy us trying. Communications specialist Hansel looked up from his station. Sir, I've been monitoring Empire channels. They're not just sending the fleet to attack us. They're broadcasting the operation to their entire territory. This is meant to be a show of strength for all their conquered worlds to see. Then we need to make sure it sends the right message, said Admiral Nam. But not the message they're expecting. Dr. Sunho was already working on new calculations. What if we don't try to displace the entire dreadnought? What if we're more surgical about it? What do you mean? Jiho asked. Instead of moving the whole ship, we move critical components. Engines, weapons, life support systems. Leave the crew alive, but make the ship helpless. Do-hyun's eyes lit up. That would require much less energy, and it might be even more demoralizing for the Empire. Instead of their ship just disappearing, they'd watch it fall apart piece by piece. But can we do it precisely enough? We're talking about selectively displacing parts of a ship while leaving other parts intact. I think so. We'll need to recalibrate every generator in the network, and we'll need perfect timing, but it's possible. General Inha looked worried. What if something goes wrong? What if we accidentally displace something vital and kill the crew? Then we kill them, Admiral Nam said flatly. They're coming here to destroy our entire planet. I'm willing to accept some moral complexity to save 8 billion human lives. Jiho began issuing orders. Do-hyun, start working on the modifications to our displacement network. Sunho, I need precise targeting data on the Eternal Conquest. Minji, coordinate with all our hidden sensors. I want to know everything about that ship before it gets here. What about the escort fleet? Asked Commander Woojin. We'll deal with them the same way we dealt with the first fleet. But this time we're going to add something new. Jiho's expression became determined. We're going to send a message. What kind of message? So Young asked. The Empire thinks we're primitive creatures who got lucky once. They think overwhelming force will solve their problem. It's time to show them exactly who they're dealing with. Hansel raised his hand. Sir, what if this doesn't work? What if our technology fails or we can't handle something this big? Then humanity dies fighting, Admiral Nam replied. But we don't surrender. We don't become slaves, and we make sure the Empire pays such a high price that other species will know resistance is possible. The meeting broke up as people hurried to their assignments. Jiho remained behind with his core team, staring at the display showing the approaching dreadnought. Captain, Minji said quietly, do you really think we can stop something that big? Jiho was silent for a moment, watching the massive ship grow closer to their solar system. Minji, 20 years ago, humans thought traveling to other stars was impossible. 10 years ago, we thought bending space-time was just theory. Today, we can make entire fleets disappear with the push of a button. He turned to face her. The Empire's greatest weakness is that they think they understand the limits of what's possible. They've built the biggest gun they can imagine, and they think that makes them unstoppable. But we're not going to fight their gun with a bigger gun. Then what are we going to do? We're going to show them that their gun doesn't matter at all. And then we're going to teach the entire galaxy that being small doesn't mean being weak. The Eternal Conquest and its escort fleet continued their approach, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that they were flying toward a species that had spent 20 years preparing for exactly this moment. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the stars ahead. His ship was called Dominion's Edge, and it was the biggest, strongest ship in the Valtharian Empire's warfleet. Behind him followed 200 other warships all ready for battle. Sir, we are getting close to the target planet, said his second officer. The creatures there call it Earth. Kethvar smiled. This would be easy. The Empire had been watching this small blue planet for months. The beings living there were called humans, and they were weak. Their technology was simple. They had just learned how to travel between stars, but barely. They had no real weapons, no strong shields, no way to fight back against the Empire's might. Tell me again about these humans, Kethvar said. They are small, soft creatures. They live short lives. Their ships are slow and weak. Our scouts say they have maybe 50 ships total, and most of those are just for carrying cargo. They cannot fight us. Kethvar nodded. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds like this. It was always the same story. First, they would show up with overwhelming force. Then the weak creatures would surrender. If they didn't surrender, the Empire would destroy them. Simple. Far away, hidden in the darkness between stars, Captain Jiho Park watched the enemy fleet approach. His ship was called Soul's Shadow, and it was unlike any other ship in space. It was small, carrying only 12 people, and it was completely invisible to enemy sensors. Captain, said Lieutenant Minji Choi from her station, the alien fleet is huge. 200 ships, all of them bigger than anything Earth has ever built. Jiho looked at the display showing the enemy fleet. Each ship was at least 10 times bigger than his own. Their weapons could destroy cities. Their shields could stop anything Earth's military could throw at them. But Jiho wasn't worried. Any word from Earth Command? He asked. Yes, sir, said Communications Officer Hansel Bay. Admiral Nam says to proceed with the Soul Project. All systems are ready. Jiho nodded to his crew. There was engineer Do-Hyun Kim, who had helped build their impossible weapon. There was pilot Yuna Lee, who could fly better than anyone else alive. Each person on this small ship knew they carried the future of humanity in their hands. The alien fleet entered Earth's solar system like conquering heroes. Admiral Kethvar looked at the small blue planet ahead and felt proud. Another victory for the Empire. Another world to add to their collection. Send the standard message, he ordered. The communication went out to Earth in the Empire's usual style. Primitive creatures of the third planet. You are now part of the Valtharian Empire. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy your world. On Earth, billions of humans heard the message, but they did not panic. They had been preparing for this day. Sir, reported the scanner officer on the Dominion's Edge, we're seeing movement around the planet. Their ships are retreating? Kethavar laughed. Of course they are. They know they cannot win. How many ships do they have? Maybe 30 or 40 small vessels, sir. They're all running away from us. This was exactly what Kethavar expected. The humans were smart enough to know when they were beaten. Soon they would send a message of surrender and this would all be over. But aboard the Soul's Shadow, Captain Jiho was counting down. 15 seconds, he said calmly. All systems ready, reported Do Yun from engineering. Targets locked, said Minji. 10 seconds. The alien fleet continued forward, confident and strong. 200 ships carrying enough firepower to turn Earth into dust. 5 seconds. Aboard the Dominion's edge, Admiral Kethavar was already thinking about his next conquest. This had been too easy. 3, 2, 1, execute. In that moment, something happened that had never happened before in the history of galactic warfare. The entire Valtharian fleet, all 200 ships, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not blown up, not damaged. They just stopped existing in normal space. One moment, the most powerful war fleet in the galaxy was there. The next moment, there was only empty space and distant stars. The only witness was a single scout ship that had been hanging back at the edge of the solar system. Its pilot stared at his instruments, not believing what they showed. Where the fleet had been, there was nothing. Not even debris. "Command, this is Scout 7, he radioed back to Empire headquarters, his voice shaking. "The fleet is gone." "What do you mean, gone?" came the reply. "I mean gone, sir. Completely gone. All 200 ships. They were there and then they weren't. My sensors show nothing. No explosions, no weapons fire, no energy signatures, nothing." There was a long silence from headquarters. "Scout 7, run a full diagnostic on your equipment." The pilot checked everything twice. His instruments were working perfectly. The fleet was simply gone. "Sir, my equipment is fine. The fleet has disappeared. And sir, there's something else. My sensors can barely detect the human ships. They're so primitive they hardly show up on our scans. There's no way they could have done this. There's no weapon signature, no advanced technology. According to our records, these humans shouldn't be able to build anything that could even scratch our paint." On Earth, Admiral Nam received the report from Captain Jiho. "Mission successful, sir. Enemy fleet has been displaced." "Any casualties on our side?" "None, sir. The Soul's Shadow is undamaged and ready for the next phase." Admiral Nam smiled. The humans had been preparing for this day for 20 years, ever since they first detected the Empire's radio signals. While the Empire thought humans were primitive and weak, human scientists had been working on technology that the Empire couldn't even imagine. The Soul Project wasn't about building bigger guns or stronger shields. It was about something much more clever. It was about making things disappear. Captain Jiho looked out at the stars where the enemy fleet had been just minutes before. Somewhere, in a place that wasn't quite here and wasn't quite there, 200 alien warships were discovering that they were no longer in normal space. They were still alive, still intact, but they were somewhere else entirely. "Sir?" asked Minji. "What happens now?" "Now," said Jiho. "We wait for them to send a bigger fleet. And when they do, we'll be ready." The first battle was over before it began, but Captain Jiho knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would not give up easily. They would send investigators, then more ships, then their biggest weapons. But humanity had something the Empire had never encountered before: the ability to simply remove threats from existence without a trace. The war for Earth's freedom had begun, and the Empire didn't even know they were fighting it.